Okay, DiCaprio has won an Oscar for the first time. Has Arun Jaitley also won an award this time for a budget which many believe has certainly at least not lived down the expectations if it hasn't lived up? It's been a budget that many people are saying has been above expectations, given that there was a conscious attempt this time to temper the euphoria that normally accompanies every budget. But we in television studios like to keep the euphoria going, so we kept it as a make or break budget. That's been the question. Has it been a make or break budget? Is it fair to see a budget as a make or break budget in the manner that we tend to do in television studios? I want to just listen in to what Arun Jaitley said. Let's listen into his speech, one or two key points that he made in that budget speech. It was a speech for about an hour and a half, which is now routine for most budgets. Time is coming down. There used to be 2-hour budget speeches, which are now about 90 minutes, which is again perhaps a sign of the times. We are slowly moving into a fast food age and perhaps the age of fast food budgets as well. Let's listen in to some of those statements and key points that Arun Jaitley made in Budget 2016.
The World Economic Forum has said that India's growth is extraordinarily high. We accomplished this despite unfavorable conditions and despite the fact that we inherited an economy of low growth, high inflation and zero investor confidence in the government's capability to govern. We converted these difficulties and challenges into an opportunity. Financial markets have been battered and global trade has contracted. Amidst all these global headwinds, the Indian economy has held its ground firmly. Thanks to our inherent strength and the policies of the government, a lot of confidence and hope continues to be built around India. $50 billion. Our initiatives in the last 21 months have not only placed the economy on a faster growth trajectory, but have bridged the trust deficit created by the previous government. We had to work in an unsupportive global environment, adverse weather conditions, and an obstructive political atmosphere. 2015-16 and 16-17 have been and will be extremely challenging for the government expenditure. The 14th Finance Commission has reduced the centre's share of taxes to 58% from 68%. In the financial year 2015-16, we managed to improve upon the budgeted expenditure due to resource revenue buoyancy, notwithstanding the steep reduction in the central share of taxes. The next financial year 2016-17 will cast an additional burden on account of the recommendations of the 7th Central Pay Commission and implementation of the Defence OROP. The government will undertake 3 major schemes to help the weaker sections of society. The Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana has already been announced to protect the farmer from adverse consequences of nature. The farmer will pay a nominal amount of insurance premium and get the highest ever compensation in the event of loss suffered. A health insurance scheme which protects 1/3 of India's population against hospitalization expenditure is being announced. The government is launching a new initiative to ensure that the BPL families are provided with cooking gas connections supported by a government subsidy. This will significantly improve the health of women and those BPL families who suffer adversely from the ill effects of chula cooking. My budget proposals are therefore built on this transformative agenda with 9 different pillars. They include 1. Agriculture and farmers' welfare with a focus on doubling farmers' income in 5 years. 2. Rural sector with emphasis on rural employment and infrastructure. 3. Social sector including healthcare to cover all the under welfare and health services. 4. Educational skills and job creation to make India a knowledge-based and productive society. 5. Infrastructure and investment to enhance efficiency and quality of life. 6. Financial sector reforms to bring transparency and stability. 7. Governance and ease of doing business to enable people to realize their full potential. 8. Fiscal discipline, prudent management of government finances and delivery of benefits to the needy. 9. Tax reforms to reduce compliance burden with a faith in the citizenry.
Welcome back. those were, of course, some of those key points that Mr. Jaitley was making. We'll come to more elements that he's made in the budget. But Divya Baveja joining us, chartered accountant, tax expert. Give me a sense, because that's what's concerning us all. We saw the tax classroom. In general, he hasn't touched the tax rates at the lower level. But as you go up the tax ladder, there's a lot of tinkering out there. There are cesses, at least one cess, new cess which has been brought in. Last year it was Swachh Bharat. Now we have Krishi Kalyan. How is all this going to affect a taxpayer? From a salaried class, is there a break that is there because of HRA benefits? Or do you believe in general a taxpayer will now end up paying far more taxes in the next year?
Yeah. So when we look at the budget, so there were a lot of expectations by a common man that this budget would either have a higher tax slab or increase in the basic exemption limit or ATC deduction. So there's nothing of that sort which is there. But insofar as super rich is concerned, yes, the finance minister has, made sure that he goes after them, which was like last year also.
And this amnesty scheme, how do there is this amnesty scheme which has been brought in.
Right.
For those who have undisclosed income, they will have penal proceeding, they'll pay about 45%, but no prosecution.
But no prosecution, yeah. Which is in fact lower than what was there earlier.
Do you see it working?
I would say the rate of 45% should work actually, because earlier when we looked at the black money law, the rate under the voluntary disclosure was much higher. It was about 60%. So 45% should work, and it's better than the 60% rate which was there earlier in the Black Money Act one-time compliance.
Because I'm just wondering, and I'm also joined by Shailesh Haribhakti, who chartered accountant, joining me from Mumbai. Do you believe that this amnesty scheme of the government will work, given that in the past with the black money scheme of the government has met with very mixed results?
No, this scheme will work like magic. I think this is very well crafted, very well thought through. So I think it will work. But it's a sore disappointment for those who have honestly paid taxes. The scheme will certainly work, and I think there will be a significant revenue rise.
But do you fear there's been a lot of tinkering as we were going, as the finance minister was reading out his budget speech on corporate tax, for example? Then he said this would be only limited to companies and to small manufacturers. There wasn't that willingness which he had shown last year that he was going to bring down corporate tax across the board from 30% to 25% over 5 years. Has there been too much of tax tinkering?
Absolutely no commitment on the reform process. Too much tax tinkering, too little promise of the roadmap. Very disappointing tax proposals. The only significant tax proposal is putting NPS on an EEE basis to the extent of 40% of the withdrawal at the time that somebody gets out of the NPS scheme, which I think is a very fair proposition.
But and how is that then going to be seen? The fact that there has been this tax tinkering, is that going to be a big negative going ahead?
Not really. I think this budget was completely predicated on reaching 75 crore Indians in the rural sector, in the bottom of the pyramid, the less advantaged population of India. And I think from that point of view, the digital thrust, the targeting, the partnering, the devolution of resources, the decentralization, all of that, and the thrust on infrastructure are all going to work for the benefit of the larger population of India.
So it's interesting that this budget for once is not about CII, but it's about rural India. So there's been a shift from CII to rural India, but I'll get you on that in a moment. But the sense is for farmers, this is what the finance minister says. Farm incomes will double in 5 years, is what is the commitment he makes in the budget. For that, I'm told by someone from KPMG, the farm sector needs to grow at 15% year on year. And that, he says, has never happened anywhere in the world and cannot ever happen.
That assumes that the number of people in farm stays the same. I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, if you make 240 million people on farms come down to 150 million, then you can double farm incomes. I mean, India's land can't support 240 million farmers. The only way to help farmers is have less of them. So implicit in the notion of doubling farm incomes is to have less farmers too, which will happen through the rest of it.
It won't happen in 5 years.
It won't happen in possibly 5 years. That's perhaps a little bit of a jumla. You know, when you say that in 5 years you're going to double farm incomes, that's a statement of intent. I mean, that's the other way to look at it. One would be a jumla designed with
farm incomes are so low, doubling them over 5 years
is possible.
Is possible if you reduce the number of farmers.
If you reduce the number of farmers, so you are asking people to move away from the farm sector to non-farm jobs.
Reducing the number of farmers,
yes,
and which is gradually happening. The other, I think, is the fact that for 2 or 3 years, we've had very, very bad rainfall. And this by itself gives you about 20-25% increase over the next 2 years, 3 years.
So you're saying it's
just weather.
So you're saying it's possible to have farm incomes double in the next 5 years?
You know, no. I would say if I were making the math, I think 70% increase here
is possible.
Is very possible.
You are very, very skeptical, Prasanjit, about that. I mean, but there is a point in what Manish Sabarwal is saying, that eventually you're going to have to move people from the farm sector to non-farm jobs. Now, that is the nature of the economy. Land holdings are becoming smaller, they are becoming more and more unviable, there's pressure on land, you've got to move away from that.
Yeah, Rajdeep, let us not mix up, because we are not discussing, long-term, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years of economic development. Those things happen over that kind of time.
I am talking about what the finance minister said. Farm incomes will double in 5 years.
That's a complete exaggerated or whatever. I don't even know how to say this, the doubling and all that, whatever he's saying. The point is, I think that from the data that is coming out, the entire, this whole idea that this government has been, has been provided a big expenditure push is completely incorrect. In fact,
but the numbers are there.
No, what numbers?
Look at the numbers of, look at the investment. Look at the investment. No, let's be clear. Let's look at hard numbers. Look at the numbers in rural India that this government has put in this budget. The fact is that it has 48% increase in overall terms of the amount of expenditure in the rural sector. Now, you could argue that these numbers are, don't represent real.
Agriculture and irrigation is a rural sector. Because
yes.
Also, social sectors, education, health.
Forget that.
Agriculture and irrigation doubles, 100% increase. 90%.
Are you going to?
90%.
Do you not believe that there is a conscious attempt? Somewhere there's a conscious attempt by the Prime Minister. And maybe because you also wear a hat as an Aam Aadmi Party member, Meera Sanyal. Let's be clear, somewhere in this, the Prime Minister is sending out a message. Last year he was attacked for being the suit boot ki sarkar. That's been the primary charge the Congress has made against him. Can they make the charge? Can you make the charge against him this time? Your party also made that charge against him. Suit boot ki sarkar. He's saying, I'm putting more money in the hands of the farmers.
Okay, so let's walk away from politics, Rajdeep. What we want is the basic promise of Achhe Din, right? Let's talk about that. Here, everyone
there was politics. When you called him a suit boot ki sarkar, you said it was politics. Let's be clear. It was a government you said for fat cats and corporates. This time, interestingly, I'm finding that CII and business is lukewarm to enthuse, but the real enthusiasm, if anything else, should be among the farmers today.
So is it amongst the farmers? I would like to see whether they feel this. We're sitting over here and saying now the budget is actually not an important exercise. Manish says, it's not.
Manish suggested.
Yeah, Manish suggested that. Manish said, Sujit, let me speak. When you speak, I don't interrupt. Yeah. Manish also then says that it's the CMs who are important. Unfortunately, this government, as we have seen in the case of Delhi, does not even allow you to appoint an anti-corruption bureau person to take care of that exercise. What kind of freedom? What kind of cooperative federalism? This is the very same government, let's say this, who said every Indian would have 15 lakh of black money in their account. This is a Jumla Sarkar and this is a Jumla budget. And what's more, this was a great opportunity, Rajdeep. I really believe that this country needs a budget which gives us a breakout. I disagree when people say the headwinds are against us. Why are the headwinds against us? We talk about infrastructure. Every global commodity is now cheaper. When India is building out her infrastructure, this is in our favor. We have a young demographic. We need jobs. Does Manish actually believe that in 5 years, 100 million people can move from agriculture into industry? Of course it's not possible. You need skills. Of course, there are many good things in this budget. I'm not saying there are not, but they are all tinkering things. In a banking sector where 1,14,000 crores have been provided, where 2,36,000 crores have to be recovered, you're talking of 25,000 crores. A single bank, State Bank of India, have increased their provisions by 20,000 crores. This is a tinkering budget. I'm not saying that you could not have, made expectations higher. Just by setting expectations so low, the country is waiting for breakout. The country is waiting for
So you believe this is not a breakout budget?
Of course it is. It's
not
a
a breakout budget. Can I just add a figure to this entire discussion? I think the point about the last budget also is the improvement in the quality of expenditure, a shift away from revenue expenditure to capital expenditure. This budget, in real terms, which I think Mr. Bhalla, he corrected in between also, that fact that we should have discussions not in nominal terms but in real terms. In real terms, there's a decline in capital expenditure to GDP ratio in this budget from last budget, and an increase in the revenue expenditure to GDP ratio in this budget compared to last budget. So we are back to square one.
Okay,
it just shows that
the dissenters have had their
not only dissenters.
You want to make
go back to square one.
No, that's your view. You want to have a quickly
that's a fact. That's not a view. That's a fact.
Okay, but in general, do you believe that maybe that there is a lot of tinkering in the budget? Do you believe that the finance minister should make these promises? I'm going to double farm incomes, or will he be held? You see,
there is no contradiction between suit put. What does that even mean, right? I mean, there's no contradiction between fixing agriculture and corporate India doing well. Interest rates will come down with this budget. We have mispriced money in this country. Why? I mean, the US has mispriced money by making it free. We've mispriced money by taking expensive. All these people need to realize that the cost of money is a very important input into animal spirits. It's a very important input into capital expenditure cycle. It's an important in the mood. When you have 14%, 12% interest rates, who is going to invest?
you see RBI bringing down interest rates now.
Overall interest rates in the next few years are definitely coming down much faster than they have in the last few years.
Okay, let's go to Arun Jaitley, who's being interviewed at the moment on DD. Let's just hear from the finance minister.
Most politicians were not